like, again, just to the question I asked about Trudeau, I'm going to ask the same about Poilievre. Like, who's paying him to do that? That's not, I mean, no one's benefiting. Maybe people from Bangladesh are benefiting. Okay, I'm not against them, by the way. I understand. I'd move to Canada too if I lived in Bangladesh. But no one in Canada is benefiting from this. So why would Poilievre and Trudeau be embracing the same policy that everyone hates and is destroying Canada?
Yeah, you have a point there. 70% of the population in Canada, the last survey, are saying no to mass immigration. We must end mass immigration. So your question is, if these politicians want to be elected, how come they are not listening to the population?
Exactly.
Because there's 343 ridings in Canada, and that's a parliamentary system. So they're looking at different ridings, and they want to have support in different ridings to be able to have a majority. But in a lot of ridings, there's a majority of foreigners or immigrants, and they want to have their support. But the new immigrants, so they are asking for having their family here in Canada with them. When I'm speaking about family, it's not the immediate family, a mother, a father, and children. No, it is, your uncle, your grandmom, granddad, brothers, sisters, so the entire family, and they want them here in Canada. So they're saying, okay, reunification of family will do that for you. You'll be able to bring all your family here in Canada. So because of the electoral system, they're looking to win some ridings to have a majority. And that's why they are not speaking for Canadians. They're speaking for different people in different ridings where they have a majority there.
How much support does Poilievre have?
Yeah, both of them are about tied in the polls right now, but I don't know what will happen.
Are there real differences between them?
On tariffs, no.
On immigration, no.
On immigration, no. On climate change, oh, that's a good one. Poilievre is supposed to be a conservative. It's supposed, our position, the People's Party, is to withdraw from the Paris Accord.
Of course.
Like Trump. But for Poilievre, the Conservatives and the Liberal, there's a climate emergency in Canada, and we must do everything.
Because it's too cold in Canada?
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's too cold. Yeah,
it's still pretty cold in Canada.
Yeah, and cold. So it is a little bit cold. But that being said, yeah, for Poilievre and Carney, they want to impose a carbon tax because Canadians don't want it. So they are listening a little bit to Canadians, but they want to impose more regulations on businesses. They want to impose other taxes to fight climate change and to be able to achieve the Paris Accord goal that we have. And at the same time, look at that. CO2 for them is a pollutant. CO2 is not good, and we need to capture the CO2. So they're giving billions of dollars to a new technology to capture CO2 and put the CO2 down in the ground. So it's so bad
it's
for
like
you.
A joke.
Yeah,
it's like a joke.
But Tucker, there's one natural technology to capture CO2.
Yes, there is.
This is plants.
Trees,
plants. It is food for plants. We need more CO2. We don't need to capture CO2 and put that in the ground, but they will spend billion of dollars that we don't have.
It does seem like China controls your country. I'm just like...
But speaking about China, CSIS is our secret service, and they did an investigation, and they said, that's not me. They said that our election in 2019 and 2021, we had Chinese interference in our elections. The Chinese Communist Party was giving money to some candidates from Chinese origin. So it's happening in our country right now. But Poilievre is okay with that. And they said also there's MPs, members of parliament in the Conservative Party of Canada and in the Liberals Party of Canada who are not loyal to our country. They said it. And we want to know the names of these people, but Poilievre and Carney and Trudeau before that, they don't know. No, it's secret. We won't tell you who these people are. So we have members of parliament in the parliament in Canada where their first goal is to help their country of origin, China or India. So that is happening because of mass immigration. If you have all these people who are coming to our country, they're not part of this country. They're coming here only because of the economy. They want a better future economically. But, they don't share our values, and their loyalty is with their country of origin.
Of course. So you said you can't get on Canadian media, which is
mainstream media.
It's state media, right? I mean, doesn't your government sort of give money to the media?
CBC and Radio-Canada in French, $1.2 billion. But the federal government is giving also $800 million to other, media, mainstream media, CTV, Global Mail. And so we will cut that. We want,
Why not have a free media? Why? State media is for North Korea, right? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Like free countries don't have state media, do they?
That's why we want to cut that spending. And if Radio-Canada or CBC, they're going bankrupt, that's it. That's okay. That's the free market. But they are the propaganda arms of the federal government, these mainstream media. And, the narrative on COVID, and now you have, at that time, during the COVID hysteria, you didn't have the other narrative on mainstream media. And now the narrative is, we must save our country from Trump. We are independent. We just need to have a good deal with President Trump. And so that's the narrative right now coming from the mainstream media.
So can you get your message? Like, how do you get your message out in Canada?
Today with you.
Wait, is that right?
Oh, yeah. You
got to fly to the United States.
Absolutely.
Do Canadians look at social media?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the future. I'm the only leader of a national political party in Canada who is doing podcasts. And Poilievre and all these other, they cannot sit for an hour, 2 hours and having a discussion. They cannot do that. So, but the new way of doing politics, Trump did it, President Trump did it, and, was successful. You need to have a discussion and explain your point of view and your political philosophy, political position. So I'm doing that. I'm the only one. And it's helping. Yes, it's helping. And I think...
How are you treated by the Globe and Mail and CBC and Radio-Canada?
I don't exist.
They don't even mention you.
No, I don't exist for them. I don't. And actually, look at that. I did participated in the leaders debate in 2019. We created that party in 2018. 2019 was our first election, and I did participate in the leaders debate against Trudeau and at that time. But in 2021, they created a new rule. And they said, okay, Bernier, now you don't have the right. And that commission, that leaders debate commission, it's only to exclude. They exist only to exclude the People's Party. And at this election, I was supposed to be able to participate in the national debate that will be next week. But they changed the rules just to exclude us. So that's not fair. That process is not fair. They're so afraid of our ideas. They don't want us to have any traditional platform.
That's frightening. Can you raise money?
Yes, we have generous by using, our emails and our members. And yes, we have money. We are able to raise money, and I want to thank our donors. They are very generous. And so you need to be a Canadian citizen to donate.
Yes.
And if they want to donate, they can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, click donation. That will help us.
Well, it's just sad because you would go to Canada. I've spent a lot of time there hunting and fishing. And even the conservative Canadians say, we've got this great healthcare system. And they were so proud of their healthcare system. I mean, they really were. I remember very well 30 years ago, they would always tell you, and they were a little bit insecure and defend, we're Canada, we're a real country. They'd always be like that. But we have this great healthcare system. And they really were proud, I think.
Yeah.
Were they?
But that's not the case right now. They were. That's not the case right now because the waiting list for surgeries, you can wait a year. So we are spending a lot of money for healthcare, and that's not functioning.
But do people feel like it's not working in Canada?
Yeah, more people. Actually, more people. So they're ready. My position is for every Canadian to have an insurance. Everybody will have an insurance. And they will be able to choose if they can go to a private hospital or a public hospital. Like in Sweden, like in European countries, they're spending less on healthcare, but they're more effective. For us, we need to put more competition in the system. So, and that would be a mixed system. We don't have that right now. There's in some provinces, like in Quebec, you can have, private clinics that can do some surgeries, but all across the country we need to have more private delivery of healthcare services, and we don't have that. And so more Canadians now understand that, and they're ready for that reform. But establishment politicians won't speak about that,
right,
because it's a taboo subject to ask for more private delivery of services.
But the system itself doesn't work very well right now.
Doesn't work.
Immigration must be putting huge strain on that system.
That's why on that system, on our infrastructures, on healthcare, on
schools, housing.
All that housing. It's that must be the first priority for us in Canada, and for the mainstream media, the mainstream politician. It is not. We are, with the Liberals, we are going, driving into a wall, and with the Conservative, we are driving into a wall, but at a different speed. That's
same here. I'm not a conspiracy person, but like if every quote democratic system in the West has the same outcome, which is two parties that fundamentally agree on the big issues but pretend to hate each other, while the real concerns of the population are ignored, you got to wonder, how did every country in the West wind up with the same fake system? Honestly, how did that happen?
Yeah. We must admit that the globalist organizations and the World Economic Forum, they have huge influence. They are think tank. They are promoting their socialist, globalist ideas in Canada and other countries. And you have our elites. They are going to Davos. They like that. And they're, that's a good idea. They think that they know better than us what is good for Canadians. And, they want to fix everything. And, a solution to every problem must be a governmental solution, must be a solution that is coming from the government. But the government is the problem. We have too much government in our lives. So that's the problem in Western society right now. Mass immigration, big government, big deficit, high inflation, all that must change.
Do you have friends or family who've left Canada?
I know people, not family, but I know people. They said, and it's business people are saying, I don't want to invest in Canada right now. Are private investment is going down, and you need investment for economic growth.
Of course.
So yeah, some people are leaving the country, but my goal, I'm telling them, stay in Canada, do the fight with me. Together, we can do that fight. We will win that battle of ideas. We have the best ideas based on individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, small government. We have faith in people. We don't have faith in a big fat government. So stay in Canada, fight with me. And that's the fight. We need to win that fight.
Why did they take all your guns away?
Oh, Trudeau did it. And he was very successful to do that. Trudeau doesn't want us to defend ourselves. And that's why in our platform, we have the Castle Doctrine. You must be able to have a gun. You must be able to defend yourself and your property with that. We need to change our criminal code for that. And our position as a political party, we will repeal every legislation that Trudeau put in to be sure that he will eliminate all the guns. But for him, and for the conservative also on guns, they're dangerous. People are not responsible. They must not have guns. So that's why we have very tough legislation on guns in Canada.
I noticed
and they don't respect property rights on gun. The federal government can decide tomorrow and with a new regulation, this gun is illegal, and the RCMP or police will go and seize your gun.
You're very heavily armed. I've had a couple encounters with Canadian law enforcement over the years, bad encounters, and boy, they're heavily armed and very aggressive. Very aggressive. They're not the kind of polite Canadians you think about. RCMP is like not anyone to mess with. They seem like a military force to me.
But now they're a woke organization.
I know.
The leader of the RCMP, they're woke, now in the RCMP and in the Canadian forces, you can be a soldier for us without being a Canadian citizen.
What?
Without being a Canadian citizen, you're an immigrant. You can participate in the Canadian forces.
So you're not a citizen of Canada, but they'll hand you an automatic weapon?
And defend our country that you don't know.
But a Canadian citizen can't have a gun at home. But they'll give some foreigner an automatic weapon, a fully automatic machine gun.
A very dangerous one, yeah.
Okay. I wonder at a certain point, and clearly Trudeau and Poilievre and the rest of them, Carney, think this too, but like, how far can you push people before, they respond in an unreasonable, violent way? I mean, if this wasn't Canada, if it was any other country, I would say, boy, they're going to get a revolution if they're not careful. Like, you can't oppress people like this. Yeah. You can't offer them suicide instead of healthcare. You can't flood their societies with foreigners. You can't destroy their standard of living. You can't throw them in jail for expressing opinions without provoking like a violent response. Are they worried about that? Is that why they took your guns away?
If they're worried about that, I'm not worried about that as a leader of a...
I'm against violent revolution, just for the record.
I'm against also that. No, it will be, the revolution will come when people would be ready, and it's happening right now. You can see the change. You can see we have more support as a new political party. People understand the battle that we are doing. And I believe it would be a quiet revolution. They're going to say, enough is enough. And that will happen. But as soon, I don't know, it may be in a couple of years or a couple of months. We never know.
But you see throughout the West, the democratic system controlled by authoritarians, excluding people from the system. You see it with Marine Le Pen right now in France. You were just knocked out of the debates. Georgescu in Romania, arrested for running on a populist position, the most popular politician in the country, and he's arrested because he's the most popular. So they're basically denying people a democratic outlet for their frustrations. They're saying, even your voting, this country, they stole the 2020 election, obviously. they're basically not allowing people any way to express their views at all. And that seems like a scary thing to do.
But we can have another freedom convoy in Canada that was very successful. And, that was successful because at the end, we were able to stop these draconian measures on us with that freedom convoy. So maybe something like that can happen. A very peaceful protest in Canada saying to our politicians, enough is enough. It can happen. Yeah. And I think something will happen. We'll have a monetary reset or something will happen. And here in Canada, we are not in a good position because our central bank, the Bank of Canada, doesn't have any gold reserve. So if we have a new monetary system...
You have no gold reserves?
No gold reserve.
Why?
They sold all that.
They sold your gold reserve?
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of your treasuries, but we don't have any gold.
No.
We are the only central banks, the only one in Western worlds that doesn't have any gold.
But Canada's a huge gold producer.
Yes, at least we can produce gold. Yeah,
a lot of gold.
Yeah,
you have actually some of the I think you've got some of the deepest gold reserves in the Canadian Mint.
Yeah.
Of course, your gold 1 ounce coins are currency or an investment.
Yeah.
For people around the world. That's interesting.
But our central bank doesn't have any gold. So
who thought that was a good idea?
I don't know, but they decided to solve all that a couple of years ago. And now we are in a very bad situation because I believe that the role of the US dollar will be very different.
Yes,
something will happen. To solve your problem about, the manufacturing sector.
It's a blessing and a curse. No, that's right.
Yeah.
Having the world's reserve currency is... And once the war in Ukraine started and sanctions were used as a weapon, the dollar was used as a weapon, it was the end of the... Long term, it was the beginning of the end of the US dollar.
Yeah, the de-dollarization is coming, and it's happening right now. So it's a question of time. But I understand that President Trump wants to do the transition, but it will hurt. It will be difficult.
Yes, it will.
And I agree with him about his end goal to have manufacturing sector back in the US. I want the same in Canada. And so we must have a real good economic policies. And, the way to solve that, we have our Bank of Canada, did the same thing like the Fed during COVID-19. We printed a lot of money. Now we have that inflation. And I'm the only politician who's saying, we need to have a zero inflation target with the Bank of Canada. Our Bank of Canada has a target of 2% inflation every year. 20% inflation, Tucker, is bad. 2% inflation is bad. We need to have zero inflation. Like that, everybody will keep their purchasing power. And so, and if you want to have that, you need to have a balanced budget. So we balance the budget in first year. We tell the Bank of Canada a zero inflation target. We have surplus, and all the surplus must go to lower taxes to Canadians, and a flat tax on business, no more capital gains tax. That's our proposal for Canadians to have a better and a more productive economy. Poilievre won't speak about that. Carney won't speak about that. But we need to tackle that. President Trump is doing that right now. He's trying to do that right now. There's a cost to that, but at least he's not kicking the can down the road
for sure,
like everybody did before him.
So it does seem big picture, if you're just looking at the world, a lot of these conflicts are about resources, like physical things.
Yeah.
Oil and gas, iron ore, bauxite, grain, gold. I mean, right? Uranium. Canada has a lot of, not all, but a lot of those things, some of the deepest deposits in the world. Water. Canada has massive amounts of fresh water. So I'm wondering what's happening to all your resources. Is anyone paying attention? Because China needs the resources.
Yeah.
to fuel its manufacturing. Broadly speaking, Asia needs those resources. Are they still under Canadian control?
It's a good question because China tried to buy some of our resources a couple of years ago, and at least the federal government did stop that. So yes, it is under our control. But the problem is not who is controlling our natural resources. It's we are not able to exploit them with our regulations and taxes. The last 10 years, the Trudeau government told, the industry, the mining industry, and, oil and gas, we need to get rid of that. It's not clean, and we cannot export that. So he put a lot of regulations. We cannot have pipeline. We cannot exploit and export our natural resources. No pipelines. So, and that's the problem. It's the regulations and the fact that the federal government is doing everything to stop the exploitation of our natural resources. Trudeau did everything to do that, and he was successful. So now we don't have any pipelines, and so we are sending our oil and gas to you guys, to the U.S., at a discount because we cannot have access to other markets. So good for you, but bad for us. So we need to do that. And this country, Canada, can be a great country if we have the right policies.
Your license plate saying Quebec.
Je me souviens.
What does that mean?
I remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
we need to remember.
But you don't remember,
no,
it seems like.
No, we don't.
So, last question. How does this... it does seem like any country, ours definitely, U.S. definitely included, reaches a tipping point with population where there are just too many people who have no roots in the country that have different alien agendas, and it basically becomes unmanageable, and there's sort of no turning back. The country can never be what it was. You can't make it great again. Mm-hmm. How far is Canada from that?
I'm looking in UK right now, what's happening there, and in France. We are not there, but we are near. If we, I said 10 years ago, we need to have a maximum of 100, not 10 years, 8 years ago, we need to have a maximum of 150,000 immigrants a year. And at that time, I was a racist because I was speaking like that, but I was not. And, and now I'm saying we need to have that moratorium because, we had mass immigration. But if we don't stop, in 10 years, I told you, 1.97% of our population, the growth of our population is coming from immigration. If we have that 2, 3, or 5 years more, trouble will be on the street more often than they are right now. So answering your question, Tucker, we are near that, we may lost our country. And that's why I'm saying, I want to save this country, and we, the People's Party, are the only hope for this country. Let's stop that mass immigration, have time to integrate all these people, and, we will be able to regain our country. But if we don't do that, I'm scared. I'm scared for the future of our country.
Well, your Canadian refugees are always welcome here. I mean it. I'm going to continue my defense of Canada as a really...
And you have a nice weather, so here in Florida.
I like cold weather, so I love Canada. Well, Maxime, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Tucker.
Tucker.
I appreciate it.
That was fun.